Salmon started becoming important for me personally when I became a fly fisherman, and I was spending a lot of time on the river. And throughout the years, I was noticing that the salmon populations were dwindling, and I was seeing less and less salmon, mainly in the form of carcasses on the riverbanks. And when I decided to look into the politics of salmon, I realized that there were numerous factors that were causing the decline. Hatcheries were a big reason, agricultural and industrial timber runoff was a big issue, dams were a big issue. And then I started researching the history of salmon and realizing that salmon is intrinsic upon the people of the Northwest, not just the native people, but you know, a lot of us implants as well. We're a very aquatic species, from rain to rivers to lakes, and salmon represent all of that and who we are as Oregonians, and they are a biological indicator of the health of our ecological communities. Here in rural communities, the #1 factor affecting salmon habitat would be runoff. It could be either from agricultural chemicals or aerial spraying. And it's kind of convenient that you've come out here to shoot today, because there's a logging operation going on up above, and probably in about, I don't know, I would assume within the next 6 to 8 months they will be conducting aerial spraying, and that's just above Lost Creek, and of course all that stuff will eventually percolate down into the stream. What we're trying to do on an individual level here, because we have a lot of runoff from the surrounding rural communities that accumulates into this large swell, is we're fencing it off to keep the livestock out, and we're going to enhance the entire swell with nutrient-loving species like poplar and alder and various willows. We want to basically slow the flow, have there be nutrient filtering that goes on, so that way when the water eventually discharges into Lost Creek, which we can take a look at later, that water is virtually clean and pure. And it'll probably take us about 2 years. We've been working on the project for a year now, and we haven't tested the water yet. Like I said, this is runoff for numerous farms throughout this valley, but I'm pretty sure it's not that clean, and what we want to do is make the water clean before it even touches Lost Creek. Pesticides were designed by their very virtue to kill, to destroy and annihilate anything. And in aquatic communities in particular, you have some species that are more sensitive to that than others, and those species tend to be at the lower level of the biological chain. So you have a lot of amphibians and newts and aquatic species, macroinvertebrates and mayflies and caddisflies, and those things accumulate all those toxins in exceedingly high levels. But then what happens is that they're on the lower end of the food chain, and you have salmon and trout and all fish eating those things, and through a process known as bioaccumulation, then it begins to develop in the muscular tissue of the salmon. And it's incredibly detrimental because it disrupts the nervous system, it disrupts their spawning cycles, it disrupts their reproductive cycles, and you know, people think that even small subtle amounts doesn't have an effect, but the small subtle amounts is what obviously has the biggest effect, because the smaller, more subtle species accumulate all that. Living completely pesticide-free is incredibly easy. Organizations like NCAP have lots of helpful sheets in regards to applying and adapting alternatives to chemicals to use around your house. We've certainly done that not only at Mountain Reserves, but even here on this 60-acre farm, we do not use any chemical inputs for anything, whether it be fertilizer or weed killers or pasture agents, things like that. There are alternatives, and the alternatives are readily accessible, and they're virtually priced the same way as conventional chemicals. And like I mentioned, NCAP has lots of alternatives available to the public.